Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, status quo. Part 1, chapter 2, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Text 16. Text 16? Yep. 16. Okay. Is that right? Yes. Mam kidayati etat ajasya janma. Mam kidayati etat ajasya janma. Vidambanam jat vasudeva gehe. Vidambadanam jat vasudeva gehe. Braje chavasori vayat ivasvayam. Braje chavasori vayat ivasvayam. Purat vyavasit jat anantavirya. Purat vyavasit jat anantavirya. Mam kedayati etat ajasya janma. Vidambanam jat vasudeva gehe. Braje chavasori vayat ivasvayam. Purat vyavasit jat anantavirya. Mam, to me. Kedayati, gives me distress. Etat, this. Ajasya, of the unborn. Janma, birth. Vidambanam, bewildering. Jat, that. Vasudeva gehe, in the home of Vasudeva. Braje, in Vrindavan. Cha, also. Vasa, in habitation. Adi, enemy. Bhaya, because of fear. Eva, as if. Swayam, himself. Pura, from Mathura Puri. Vyavasit, fled. Jat, one who is. Anantavirya, unlimitedly powerful. Translation. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, although he is unborn, how he went away from his father's protection to Braja and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy, and how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. Please repeat. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, although he is unborn, how he went away from his father's protection to Braja and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy, and how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhagavatam. Because Lord Sri Krishna is the original person from whom everything and everyone has emanated. Aham sarvasya prabhu. Bhagavad Gita 10.8. N. Janmadi asyayataha. Vedanta Sutra 112. Nothing can be equal to or greater than Him. The Lord is supremely perfect, and whenever He enacts His transcendental pastimes as a son, a rival, or an object of enmity, He plays the part so perfectly that even pure devotees like Uddhava are bewildered. For example, Uddhava knew perfectly well that Lord Sri Krishna is eternally existent and can neither die nor disappear for good. Yet he lamented for Lord Krishna. All these events are perfect arrangements to give perfection to His supreme glories. All these events are perfect arrangements to give perfection to His supreme glories. It is for enjoyment's sake. When a father plays with his little son and the father lies down on the floor as if defeated by the son, it is just to give the little son pleasure and nothing more. Because the Lord is all powerful, it is possible for Him to adjust opposites such as birth and no birth, power and defeat, fear and fearlessness. The pure devotee knows very well how it is possible for the Lord to adjust opposite things. But he laments for the non-devotees who, not knowing the supreme glories of the Lord, think of Him as imaginary, simply because there are so many apparently contradictory statements in the scriptures. Factually, there's nothing contradictory. Everything is possible when we understand the Lord as the Lord and not as one of us, with all our imperfection. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Praschatya Vishatane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhuya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. That's it. Thank you for the opportunity to present Srimad Bhagavatam. Apologies to the seniors. It is an offense to speak in front of those who are superior than us, so beg forgiveness. So we're reading Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. It is explained that the Bhagavatam is compared to the form of the Lord, and the first 2 cantos are like the lotus feet. 1st and 2nd canto just gives us that shining brilliance of the Lord. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in his book Bhagavad Taraka Marichimala how these initial verses found in the first 2 cantos, they shine light on the true identity of Krishna. And then it is described that the more we advance in reading Bhagavatam, the more we get to know about the Lord, just like in His body form. And then finally, the 10th canto is His lotus face. So here we are in 3rd canto, just the beginning of it, chapter 2. Who remembers the title of the chapter? No one remembers? There's no there? Remembrance of Lord Krishna. So the first thing is try to give context to what we are reading. At the end of the 2nd canto, we find how Vidura takes off. As you know the story, you must have heard it many, many times. he leaves his house because he was insulted by Duryodhana. Sometimes these things happen. Prabhupada explains in the purpose. Sometimes these family disputes happen and then one gets fed up and then one leaves or something happens like that. But Prabhupada says that actually that's not the reason why he left. He left because he wanted to find some higher source of inspiration in his spiritual advancement. And therefore he goes and looks for devotees, for saintly devotees. And then he encounters Uddhava while he was doing parikram. It is explained in the Vedas that when one wants to purify oneself, then one goes on parikram. It's very traditional. If you spend some time in India, you see, especially if you stay in holy places, how many people come. I mean, I'm not one to say, but it appears that many of them, they don't even know what they're doing. You know, I was in Rishikesh and so many people were coming every single day. They were coming and doing their thing, and then they go to the Ganga, and then they do their prayers and do some pujas and go around like that. So everyone, kids, all the members of the family, everyone. Sometimes I will talk to them, and then they will say, oh, somebody passed away, or my son or daughter, they are going to begin their studies. So therefore we come to do some pious activities like that. So sometimes they may not have much understanding of what they are doing. So I may have seen also Westerners that they just happen that a friend brought them along and, you know, they just follow and they go and attend Ganga Puja or something. So it is in a standard practice that when one wants to purify oneself for whatever reason, then one does parikram. So in doing that, Uddhava, of course he didn't go, he knew what he was doing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that sometimes in devotional service we can have kind of like a, what he said, water buffalo mentality. That, you know, we just do it because everyone is doing it, so we're just doing it. So he says, no, don't have that mentality, just that you just follow without knowing. So we need to know, and therefore shastras are there. So Uddhava was, Vidura was doing parikram, visiting different holy places that is described in the previous verses, and then he finds Uddhava. So the first chapter of this canto, it's called Questions by Vidura. And we were discussing some time ago about how questions are so crucial, because questions define our life. Questions define our spiritual life. And we were referring how in Bhagavatam, everything begins with questions. The first chapter of Bhagavatam is called Questions by the Sages. And the very first verse of Bhagavad Gita, in fact, is a question. What are my sons and the son of Pandu doing? So questions are throughout the Gita, throughout the Bhagavatam. And these questions are analyzed in the first two chapters of the Bhagavatam. And they are defined as Krishna Samprashna. Prashna means question. Krishna recommends us to do questions, to present questions. Pariprashnena, prashna, that's the question. Word. Prashna. Prashna and seva. We have to ask, and then we have to serve. And during the service is the answer of the application of that question. What can I do to this? The Prabhupada says, distribute prashadam, build temples, develop preaching. So the more we advance, the more we may say specific questions we have. How can I do this? How can I improve my chanting, my consciousness, my sadhana, my reading, service? So Vidura, Mahatma Vidura finds Uddhava and asks him so many questions. You can see so many questions. And Uddhava, being such an intimate servant of the Lord, he enters into a state of trance because he's remembering Krishna. By this time, Krishna already has left. And it is described in a few verses, how Uddhava had to take some time to, as we say, regroup himself, right? Just to be able to process these emotions because he's remembering Krishna. So although we are beginning the third canto, we can already see the symptoms of a very advanced devotee. And in fact, these few chapters, I think around 3 chapters or more, describe Krishna's pastimes. Right? It's all like a mini Krishna book here. Although Krishna book is coming, 10th canto. But here, if we read all the verses, we see it's like a summary, like a, what do you call, a trailer of what's coming next, coming soon. Remembrance of Lord Krishna. So the question here is, why is Uddhava presenting this? What do we learn from this exchange between Vidura and Uddhava? So I read the verse so we can stay on track of what Prabhupada is explaining about according to the Bhagavatam. It says, when I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, although he is unborn. And Prabhupada cites in the beginning of the purport 2 verses. The first one is 10.8, which is the first verse of the Chatuslokas. Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses, but the essence of the Gita is presented in 4 verses. 10, chapter 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So the first line, very famous, one of the most quoted lines in Prabhupada's preaching, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. Aham means I, Sarvasya Prabhu. I manifest everything. Atha Sarvam Pravarta. Everything comes from me. He's basically repeating himself. Everything comes from me. I'm the source of everything. And then Janmadiya Syayato. This is Vedanta Sutra 112. And Janmadiya Syayato is what Srila Vyasadeva compiled. The Vedanta Sutras, what he compiled, all the Vedas condensed Vedanta Sutra. And therefore the Bhagavatam is like expansion, like you have an accordion and then you expand it like that. So in the same way, the Vedanta Sutra is a concise. Sutra means, how Prabhupada translated it? Aphorisms, formulas, concise formulas, aphorisms. So Janmadi Asya Yato, everything, from whom everything comes from. Like that. Janmadi Asya Yato. And that same 3 words are the first line of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam expands the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, the Bhagavatam is described as the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, like that, because it is expanded. So what does Janmadi Asyayato mean? That everything comes from the Lord. That from whom everything is emanating. In other words, the absolute truth. Now, Srila Prabhupada begins his commentary on the first canto saying that the concept of God and the concept of absolute truth are not on the same level. That is philosophically enough for us to start really turning on the computer. The concept of God and the concept of absolute truth are not on the same level. He starts like that. It's only 1.5 pages of introduction that he wrote. And then are like 38 or 39 pages on the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that 1.5 pages, Prabhupada, in a very concise way, he put the essence of Krishna conscious philosophy. And then he continues saying that the Bhagavatam targets on the absolute truth. So, what is the difference? What is the difference? First of all, Lord Sri Krishna, he is presented as a supreme person, the boss. As in the Bhagavatam, it is explained, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He's a supreme person. But how is he supreme? Jiva Goswami says, Prabhupada quotes, Jiva Goswami saying that people know that God is great, right? Many people believe in God. But no one knows how great he is. No one knows. Very interesting what Prabhupada says there. And then he explains, Prabhupada explains, why no one knows? Because no one has truly love for him. Because you can only love a person if you truly know that person. So nobody really knows Krishna. So it is explained in the Vaishnava Shastras, in the Bhakti Shastras, that in order for us to know Krishna, we need to have love. Right? And therefore, yesterday, so much glorification of Srimati Radharani, because she's the highest, she's the greatest lover of Krishna, and therefore she truly knows him. Right? That's the whole thing. So when we find these devotees that the Bhagavatam presents, Narada, Vidura, Uddhava, they show what they feel about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada used to say, you have to chant with feeling. You know. So how do you chant with feeling if you don't feel? Right. One way is to learn from those who feel. So therefore the Bhagavatam early on brings this sort of level of devotion. Uddhava feeling overwhelmed because he's remembering Krishna. And then all these questions are just like spices. You know, the food's being prepared and expert cooks put this and that at a certain time and move it in a certain way and wait some time and then it's wonderful. Like yesterday's prasadam was, I don't know, the best I have tried here so far. I don't know. It was only half day fasting, so I can't say that I was that hungry. You know, but it was just incredible. And we had some guests that came from Perth, and you know, they are expert cooks, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" You know. So yeah, so always Prabhupada used to say we have to relish this. In the Bhagavatam, which verse is that one? Is it the second or third? Is it Nigama Kalpatarorgalitam Phalam Sukha Mukharam Brita Drauvya Samhitam? That this Bhagavatam is considered the ripened fruit of the Vedic literature and has become even sweeter because Sukadeva Goswami, just like a parrot, right? Like Prabhu has some papaya trees, right? And sometimes the birds come and pick on them and, you know, accelerate the process of ripening. So the fruit becomes sweeter because Sukadeva Goswami has picked into it. So Sukadeva Goswami is giving this fruit, and the hearers, that includes us, are meant to relish this. You know? So the sweetness is presented by the devotees, by the feeling that the devotees are experiencing here, and Uddhava is sharing that, right? So yes, the Lord is the Lord, the boss, God. But the absolute truth, what does absolute truth means? Absolute truth means simply, not getting too complicated. After festivals, generally you feel the atmosphere is a little, so much intense service, and everyone is shaken. You can tell generally the next day, in Mayapur the same, whenever there's big festivals, the next day is like a big storm has come, and everything is, you can see everything is, something happened here. So generally these big festivals are special moments. So the absolute truth means God and His energies. That's what absolute truth means. That's simple. I mean, putting it simply, of course. Krishna explains Himself in Bhagavad Gita as the Lord of everything. Beginning from chapter 7, He really gets into His identity, His supremacy. What are those three points that He mentions at the end of chapter 7? He says, I am the Supreme Controller, I am the Supreme Enjoyer, and I am the best friend. Prabhupada was in I don't remember exact date, but the early days in 26 Second Avenue. And he announced tomorrow is going to be initiation. I think it was a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a regular newcomer sort of person, has been a couple times. And then someone asked, what is initiation? And Prabhupada explains briefly. It's a formal commitment, with the spiritual master, etc. And someone says, I want to be initiated. Right? And Prabhupada asked, so who's the owner of everything? And then he says, Krishna. Who's the controller of everything? And then again, Krishna. And Prabhupada, smiled. Who's the enjoyer of everything? And then he said, oh, this is easy, Krishna. And he says, yes, you can take initiation. Something along those lines. So then Prabhupada changed his mood. It became very serious. And then he says, and he's the best friend of everyone. There are things that we may say theoretical, but the internal aspect of Krishna consciousness is that the feeling of a devotee. And the feeling of a devotee is because Krishna is in his or her heart, and it's acting in ways that it shows he's our best friend. Just remember your best friends from childhood. How many of those best friends you had, right, when you were in school? This is my best friend forever. Where is he or she? Right? Sometimes they betray you, or in the best case, they pass away and you remember them, a lot of love. But they're gone. But Krishna is always there, 24/7. Doesn't matter what happens, he's always there. So Uddhava likes remembering Krishna. And then he gets confused. Why he gets confused? Who remembers? We were reading here, Prabhupada is explaining. It's in the verse itself. But why he is confused? Krishna, Uddhava says that he is distressed. Why is he distressed? He gives 3 reasons here. Anyone remembers? It's in the verse. I read it again. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, although he is unborn. That's one thing. That he's unborn. Krishna says, Ajopi Samma Vyayatma. Whenever there is appearance days, Prabhupada used to quote 3 or 4 verses from chapter 4. Ajopi samavayatma tikanomi shlopi. So, but although I'm unborn, I take birth. So that's like, okay, that's the first thing. Although he's unborn, he was born in a prison house. So this is bewildering. Right. Then after that, Uddhava says, how he went away from his father's protection to Braj. So this is kind of a tragic story, right? Then imagine you're born, and then because you were about to, the risk is there that you're killed, so you have to be moved somewhere else. And live there incognito out of fear of the enemy. The enemies comes, of course. And how? Third reason. Although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. What's that verse? It says that fear personifies, fear by fear personified. I forgot the Sanskrit. Second chapter, first canto. So Krishna, everyone is fearful of Krishna. Doesn't matter. Even the most powerful person is fearful of death. Krishna says, I'm dead also. Everyone's fearful. But Krishna becomes fearful of somebody. How is it? And the devotee becomes distressed. Is that pastime of when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, right? All the devotees were fainting. Why? He's so beautiful. He's so wonderful. And he has to shave his head. Why? This is not right. Actually, those who have been in Mayapur, you see in the Bhaktivedanta hospital, outside, there is this murti of Lord Chaitanya, shaved head. So one day we were driving with my Guru Maharaj, Thakur Maharaj, and he said, that's painful. That's painful, he said. Because Navadvip Lila, it's Grihastha Lila, his hair is, when you put like that breaks the ambasis, pain. He said, because I've never heard of that. I thought, oh, jai, ecstatic. Because the devotees are used to his beauty like that, you see? But then shaved head, live in the forest, walk bare feet, Sometimes he doesn't want even one attendant, one assistant. So the devotees feel pain. Oh my Lord, how? There's another verse that says that when Krishna goes to look after the cows and the calves, the bulls, and they are concerned because his feet may be hurt by the stone. When you walk bare feet, sometimes you're not used to, then it hurts. So the devotees are thinking, But if we go back to the philosophy, we may say, like Krishna tells Arjuna, 6-7 times in the beginning of chapter 2, don't lament. Right? He tells him, Natom Suchitam Arhasi. Prabhupada often will repeat this, Natom Suchitam Arhasi. Don't lament. But here, the highest form of bhakti is lamentation. So the devotee is lamenting, oh my Lord, his feet are hurting, or his hair is being cut, or how? It's just like overwhelming for Uddhava. And listen how Prabhupada, so nice, how Prabhupada says, all these events are perfect arrangements, okay, to give perfection to his supreme glories. All these events are perfect arrangements to give perfection to his supreme glories. Prabhupada saying that all these things are happening. It's like, I'm not much of a cook, but But sometimes you taste something and you think, wow, this is amazing, isn't it? Some sweet rice or whatever, I don't, appetizer. Prashad is coming, so I have to finish soon. But then, you're like, wow, this is really, really good. Some perfectly done doshas or anything, whatever is your favorite. Because there is something, there is a particular technique. So the Bhagavatam brings forward that the heart of a devotee, and that's why Uddhava's feelings are presented here, although early, right? Because what's the first canto's title? The name of the first canto? Creation, right? Second canto? Cosmic manifestation, right? So this is, we may say, very basic. Same thing Krishna does in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. What is the first thing he explains? Bhumira punalova yurkamano buddhirevacha. These are my energies. Remember? Absolute means God and his energies. The first thing he talks is his energies. Material energies, separated energies. But then he says, but there's another energy. And he talks about the living entities. But above all that, it's me. Right? Like that. And then he starts presenting. This is primary school, we may say. Right? So he's giving all these things, creation, cosmic manifestation. But here in third canto already Uddhava is bringing, and he's describing the gopis, and he gets choked up and he has to clean dry tears in his eyes and ecstasy, because that's why who was commenting this that many Mayavadis and others they speculate with Gita and other books, and but no, Bhagavatam no one touches. No one touches Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is Amalam. It's pure. So Bhagavatam means the devotee. And Prabhupada emphasized that in the beginning of the first canto, that we need to learn, forgot the verses, we need to learn this Chaitanya Charitamrita, we need to learn Bhagavatam from the Bhagavad devotee. That's why we read from Prabhupada and then we see his life. We have to, I know devotees who have joined because they read Prabhupada's biography, even the summarized one, and there are other also biographies, not only that one that Satsu Maharaj put together, but there are many biographies coming, and it's you see Krishna's there because the love of Krishna is manifested in someone's behavior, and you feel inspired. Because it's not mental, it's not intellectual, it's something that goes beyond even our heart or our feelings, it's the soul. So this is deep. So whatever is presented, or the concepts presented in the Bhagavad Gita, are exemplified in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the four verses, essential verses of Chatusloki from Gita, Krishna talks only 2 lines about himself. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate. And then he says, changes gears. Iti matva bhajantimam. He talks about them. He talks about the devotees. Right? Those who know me as the source of everything, worship me with all their hearts. And the 3.5 verses are about the devotees. Tesham satata yuktana. It's my devotees. Without knowing the devotees, we cannot know Krishna. That's why we worship Radharani. Because without her, we cannot understand anything. Without devotees, we cannot understand anything. Not only the spiritual master, but also the sadhus, Guru, Shastra, sadhus. And Shastra is mostly about the devotees. And we can see in the first 3 verses of Bhagavatam that the Bhagavatam presents Bhagavan, Bhagavata, devotee, and the Bhagavat book, Bhakti. The 4 B's, 3, 4 B's. Bhagavatam, Bhakta, Bhakti, like that. So absolute truth means, at least for Gaudiya Vaishnava, so that people may speculate whatever way they want, but at least in our line, is the love, the bhakti that the Bhagavad devotees have for Bhagavan. That's our simple process. We don't have to, So the practical application of this is that we cannot be confused. There's no contradiction, Prabhupada says. There's no contradiction. Factually, there's nothing contradictory. You can almost hear. And everything is possible when we understand the Lord as the Lord, and not as one of us, with all our imperfection. That's how Prabhupada ends his purport. So, any questions so far? So we don't want to put...
Maybe one of us is like distressed because of these. One of the qualities of Krishna, that he's unborn, but that he was born, that he's fearless, that he's fearful of cancer. It seems like a funny word to use. Distressed, is it really like just love or something?
I'm not a Sanskrit expert, and what do I know? A bird can fly only according to the length of its wings, so I just, distress, confused also, it's just pain, you're distressed. How he went through all that. But as Prabhupada says, these are it's for enjoyment's sake. That's what he says. All these events are perfect arrangement to give perfection to His Supreme Glory. It is for enjoyment's sake. So it's just, I don't like music, classical music or opera and those things, but what I understand is that, when one of those things are performed properly, people cries, right? Just by seeing someone singing or dancing or something, and people cries because it touches people's heart. But in this case, are the spiritual emotions. So, kedayati, that's the word. Kedayati gives me distress, aches my heart to see him doing that. So, we mentioned last time how Prabhupada, a few times in Gorakhpur, in Mayapur, in Caracas, in Venezuela, and in Atlanta, as far as I recollect. Whether he was chanting Jaya Radha Madhava or he was chanting Parama Karuna, then he just choked up, because he said, Gornita has come all the way for you. South America is on the other side of India, all the way. So he went there for you. And he choked up, he couldn't sing the song. So, Lord Chaitanya endeavors. Lord Nityananda, he got hit. We were saying that, how many of us are willing to take a hit? Go and preach now in the Gold Coast or somewhere, and somebody's going to hit me with a bottle. Jai! Who's willing to do that? So Lord Nityananda does those things to encourage us, right? To show the true desire of Krishna, that we need to help others, try to help others, like that. This is not, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says in that book about Bhagavatam, he says that Bhagavatam is not only for entertainment. Yeah, it's entertaining sometimes when we see the past things and all this, but it's not only for entertainment, it's for purification. When we hear attentively and with humility, then our heart gets turned, and we think, I wish I can be a little bit like that, and follow Prabhupada's instructions. And he says this is nice also, it's Prabhupada is like he is all the time. He says, a pure devotee knows very well how it is possible for the Lord to adjust opposite things. But he laments. Listen to this. Prabhupada always brings in his angle. But he laments for the non-devotees who, not knowing the supreme glories of the Lord, think of him as imaginary, simply because there are so many apparently contradictory statements in the scriptures. So Prabhupada, the point of lamentation, he uses it to promote the desire of Krishna, which is to help others. Sankirtan means everyone. You know, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu says, everyone or none. We all are going back to Godhead or no one. That's the mood. Just like the captain of the ship, you know, the captain generally says, you know, everyone goes first, I stay back. You know, if I have to die, I'll sacrifice. Like Prabhupada, he woke up first than anybody else. Right? Where were they? Where's the Kumbh Mela? Where's the Kumbh Mela? Allahabad, yeah. The famous pastime, he was there. You know, no hot water. You know, in my case, it's spoiled. You know, the shampoo has to be there, everything in the warm. You know. So, and then he noticed that devotees were not waking up early. They were living in tents, tin sort of covering and all that. And then, you know, he walked there with some assistant, and then bucket, 2, 3 in the morning. He says, I'm doing it, and I'm 80 plus, why don't you do it? You know, so Prabhupada shows that love doesn't mean that, you know, whatever it's convenient or comfortable for me. He left Vrindavan for the sake of Krishna, and then so many times we read these pastimes where he tells Krishna, when he came to Sydney, right? And then he brought Radha Krishna, correct? That's the pastime? What did he say? You know better than me.
He said, now I'm leaving you in the hands of the Ganesha's, you take care of it.
Please take care of yourself. Like that, you know. I mean, this just...
1971, Prabhupada installed by Gopinath then, and then when he was leaving to go on his own journey, he was standing in front of Radha Gopinath like this for quite some time, and then he left. And the devotees know what Prabhupada was doing, and then a year later when he came back, Prabhupada could see that nicely the ritual was going on, and Prabhupada said, yes, when I was here last, I prayed to the Lord, my dear Lord, I'm leaving you in the hands of the lectures. Now you have to take care of yourself.
Incredible. So by knowing Prabhupada, we can know Krishna. Simple as that. If we get to know him, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Yeah, that's Krishna's pastime. We know Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Well, Prabhupada is no different. You know, it's representing Krishna, Sakshat Hari. So, Uddhava, the spiritual masters, the Parampara, you know, we learn about Krishna through the devotees, otherwise it's impossible. I mean, at least personally, I don't know. Someone else maybe, you know. But, so we're blessed by Prabhupada, by opening his heart to us every day, 2, 3 in the morning, saying these things for us. And then he said, my only complaint to my disciples is that. So we have to keep trying. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gandharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki.